The Epistle of James almost preaches itself today. Here we have again, for the second week, a reading from this particular book. Now, the last time we had a five in a row series was John, where Jesus is proclaiming himself as the bread of life. There are people eating and feeding and drinking. Somewhere in the past 5 Sundays, they've been doing that. And Jesus finally proclaims that the feeding and drinking that they have been doing is a symbol of himself as the source and the food. So here we'll have James for another 3 Sundays. I don't know about you, but seeing that pattern, if you study the lectionary every week, like Father Rob, Father Paul, and I do, I kind of want to see a pattern here. Why for 5 Sundays are we in John? Why for 5 Sundays will we be in James? And then another 2 or 3 Sundays, I think, in Hebrews. Maybe we needed, in the 5 Sundays we heard about Jesus feeding us, maybe we needed to hear that every week. Relationships, our relationship to Christ through the Eucharist, through our daily prayers, takes time. Takes time. And we have to be reminded of that often. And so I feel it is with the readings from James for the next Sundays. James is pretty serious about our relationship, our faith, our relationship to Jesus being poured out in the service and the works that we do for others. I don't think you can see it any other way. He's pretty clear about that. He's even so clear to say that if we do not have works to express and the works do not flow from our relationship to Christ, then that faith that we have is not alive, it is not vibrant. Sounds pretty harsh to me. But it doesn't have to sound harsh. It can be an opportunity for us to see. And as my brother, Father Paul, pointed out, there's not a so what, but there's a so that. The relationship that we have through Christ as our bread, Christ's blood as our wine, is a relationship that flows when we do service for others. We commune with Christ at the altar so that the love that we have for him flows out to the love we have for others. James in particular talks about the poor. There are people who are really afraid of poor people. Did you know that? Poor people can smell bad sometimes. They can wear shabby clothes. They may or not have mental faculties that make what they say make sense. But we need to be honest about that. Rich people scare me. Not just because they have money, but it's sometimes the mindset and how they use that wealth to harm, to get over upon, or to do good for others. Sometimes I've seen more of the former than the latter. And so I'm not righteously afraid of some wealthy people. But I also am in love and admire some wealthy people who see that the gifts that they have been given, that first of all, that comes from God. And that second of all, if they have a relationship with God their Father, then what he has blessed them with must flow out into the world. Not necessarily in that they give a lot, but maybe that their practices, their business practices, give dignity and respect to everyone whom they serve. And maybe they have some extra benefits and options for those who cannot afford their goods and services to make that possible for them. Interesting situation. Part of our ordination vows for a deacon says that you are to love and serve the poor and rich alike. I rather like that part because it exhorts us not to make any partiality, none at all. A woman named Gloria came by the church a few weeks ago, and I was so excited. This is my first chance to help somebody. Can really do some good. And Father Rob knows how excited I was to do that. And he wasn't here. He'd gone across the street to meet with a parishioner, and I was alone to decide, what do I do? And she said, I need some food. I haven't eaten today. And I thought, yeah, I'll buy her some food. No, wait, is that what I'm supposed to do? So I texted Father Rob. I said, she's hungry, and what do I do? And he corrected me from 9 o'clock. He said, Jesus fed the hungry. And in a text, I could hear his voice, Jesus fed the hungry. So I said, okay. I said, why don't we go across the street to Burger King and we'll get you a meal? So in the course of that, I began to think, well, what will she eat tonight? What will she eat tomorrow? And if it had been up to me, I would have just took her to Bilo and got her a buggy full of groceries, but she didn't have anywhere to live, so where was she going to store the groceries? So I thought about, what can I do for her right now? I could buy her a meal. And then I said, Gloria, are you going to have food for tonight? She says, well, in a roundabout way, she told me no. So I said, why don't we get you a food card for tonight? I was so excited. I got to help somebody. And she was really grateful. But Gloria's clothes were torn. Gloria did not smell well. Gloria's fingernails were so dirty. Her hands were so dirty. And I thought, many people would be afraid to help Gloria. They would be afraid if Gloria approached them. So I thought that was the end of Gloria. So 2 weeks ago, we're coming back from finishing our Bible study here. Gloria shows up at the door. I said, oh, okay, well, she wants something different this time. Gloria needed a bus ticket to go live with her aunt. Now, more than likely, her aunt knew that she was on the streets of Spartanburg. Her aunt lived in Greenville. Her aunt probably knew she was on the streets in Spartanburg and felt, if she gets here with me, she'll be all right. Now, back and forth I go between, is she really going to use it for a bus? Does she really need a bus ticket? Does she really want something else? Is there going to be a hook of something else besides the bus ticket? And then I thought about what we had talked about in the Bible study. It's not my job to decide what she needed that ticket for, what she was going to do with it. She may have given it to someone else. So I said, came inside again, Father Rob and Mother Jenny were inside, and I said, thank God somebody's over there because I need advice again. So I come running inside. Father Rob, Gloria's back. She needs a bus ticket. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if she's really got an aunt. And he looked at me, he said, well, you're going to have to decide that. And I thought, I really wanted him to tell me to buy the woman a bus ticket. He already told me that Jesus fed the hungry, with the implication of you feed her. So I said, well, okay, not give me any concrete stuff. I go back out. I said, Gloria, why don't you come back at 4 o'clock? We'll go down to the bus station. We'll get that ticket. He said, well, how am I going to get there? I said, well, we'll take you. Now, when I say smelled bad, this woman smelled bad. But I put her in my car to take her to the bus station to get the ticket. She was so overjoyed and so happy, and I learned so much about her story that I was just tickled to death that I was able to participate in the love of God by getting her that bus ticket. So you might ask how this life that James is asking us to live of service based on relationship, what does that look like today? That's one example. I'm not saying everybody should take a Gloria to the bus station and buy a ticket, but we should be noticing where the needs are in the world. Where is there suffering? Where is there loss of hope? Where is there loss of respect and dignity, especially for the poor? Then we look at ourselves. What has God gifted me with? I'm particularly good at giving hope and talking to people. But outside that door, a basket full of canned goods. Some energy was spent getting it off the shelf at Bilo to bringing it here to putting it in that basket. And then that basket is brought up and we offer that to God to help our brothers and sisters. The way that a retiree helps is different than the way a young family with children helps. But nevertheless, God calls us to action to make sure that our faith is not stagnant, but it is active and vibrant in the doing good for others. So second of all, we discern. Where's God calling us to serve? And then, of course, you know the answer, we do it. We are always discerning where God wants us to serve his people. And I might say with James, especially the poor. One way I saw this, good and bad, certain service agencies have waiting rooms. Sometimes those waiting rooms are dirty. The chairs are filthy. The way the people who come for help are spoken to can often be deplorable. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen people come here to the food pantry, come to the free clinic, and they're spoken to and treated with dignity. The chairs are nice and clean. Ron Davis usually has something printed out to give them food for the mind. They're able to sign a prayer request so they can get fed spiritually and their needs can be lifted up to God. The partitions are neat and clean. The boxes are impeccably prepared. What if we use our skills, our gifts, to make spaces welcoming and clean and safe for those who are desperately in need of our services? That gives dignity. And that, I think, in a little way, gives hope, too. Many times, it can be fearful to move out of our comfort zone. We're happy where we are. We think we're doing all right. We come to church, we do X, Y, and Z. But every now and then, God may want us to change course and do something different. There are many ways to serve here. Altar guild, choir. I've already mentioned food pantry, free clinic. You open your doors to NAMI and Narcotics Anonymous and AA. All of those things are a way of activating faith. Our brother Martin Luther is credited with saying that he thought the Epistle of James is straw. Because for Luther, he seemed to read it as if I'm saved by what I do. The good works I do are part of my salvation. And I thought about that even as a young person. I don't think that's what James is saying at all. I think James is saying that the relationship we have with Christ, out of that flows the good works. And he doesn't really give an option. That should be happening. As we discern our lives and where we are serving God's people, remember James. Remember his exhortation. And listen in the coming weeks, because James gets in our business a lot. He's going to talk about our speech next week. He's going to touch every area of our lives that need to be affected and transformed by Christ. My hope for all of us is that we will hear the still small voice of God as to where he would have us serve, and that we would follow through accordingly, and that out of the faith that we have, the good works would flow. Amen.